All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is a joint committee session of our Health and Human Services Committee and Education and Culture Committee before the Montgomery County Council. We are here this afternoon to receive a briefing on a very important subject, and that is the county's planning to help address this next wave of unaccompanied minors that we anticipate will be coming to our community. Let me just say a couple of things up front. The first is that our good friend, Councilmember Nancy Navarro, is going to be joining this session, but is on her way to help her daughter get her second vaccination shot. And so she will be tuning in by phone, but will be participating. And Councilmember Jawanda will be joining us momentarily. This subject is obviously timely. This is not the first time our community has worked collaboratively to address the holistic needs of children, youth, and families who are fleeing violence, who are fleeing extreme climate conditions and extreme poverty and economic conditions, searching for what many generations have searched for within our community, and that's just a path forward and to improve their own situation and that of their families. And we are enriched, very much enriched, by the incredible multicultural community that we have here in Montgomery County, and we have so many immigrants among us who contribute economically, culturally, and in every corner of our society. And I'm proud to live in a county and community that understands and celebrates and embraces the importance of having such a diverse population. And it is important for us to ensure that we address the holistic needs of these families who are fleeing violence, who are refugees, but also ensure that our systems as a whole have the proper support that they need in order to be able to move forward. And so we will be receiving a briefing this afternoon, and we will be hearing from representatives from the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as Montgomery County Public Schools. And we will also be hearing from a good friend of mine, Ms. Juanita Cabrera Lopez, who's the Executive Director of the International Mayan League. Just sidebar, I had the opportunity to visit the border with Juanita several years ago with our good friend Antonio Tijerino during the last wave of unaccompanied minors that came to our community. And many of the children and youth come from indigenous areas of their countries of origin, and both because of language access and another series of background and context, it's very important to understand that and as we prepare and plan. So we're thrilled to have her here as well. I want to thank Ms. McMillan, Ms. Yao, and everyone that helped put this briefing together. We have a great packet before us. And I'll also just note two final things. When I served in the executive branch, was part of the task force that worked on this issue most recently, and there were many lessons learned through that process. One of which is that there has to be clear and concise coordination to be able to connect all of these great systems and organizations and programs that we have in place. And so I'm excited that we are going to be hearing from Ms. Gillian Hubner, who I know will be working with the executive branch, and part of her role will be that coordination. And we're also joined by Dr. Maria Navarro, who's known well to our community and recently stepped down from her post in MCPS, but obviously remains very engaged and a national leader on so many issues, and I know is working on this as well. We also have Ms. Joanne Barnes and Dr. Raymond Kroll here from the Department of Health and Human Services, and we have and Luis Cardona, and we have representatives from MCPS as well. With that, I will stop and turn it over to Chair Rice to ask if he has a few words to say before we jump into the presentation.
Let me just say you framed a lot of it, Chair Albornoz, and so I won't be long. I just want to say that we need to be leading with compassion. And I hope that our folks who are watching, our folks who will watch this later, will understand what is at stake here. And that is that families are making a really tough decision about whether or not to send their children on precarious journeys to travel to the United States to escape death. What almost is certain death in many cases, being forced into gangs or being killed by gangs. that's the reality of what's happening in these countries. So whether it's Honduras or El Salvador, Guatemala, any of our Central American countries, Mexico, the reality is that in all of these, there's so much turmoil. And as you heard from Chair Albornoz, whether it's climate issues, whether it's dealing with the COVID pandemic, or whether it's dealing with the criminal element, there's just so much uncertainty that's there and so much fear. And so when you hear Chair Albornoz talk about what it is that we need to do and why it's so impactful on our children, and you'll hear today from those who are working with these cohorts in our community who can talk about the stories of what it is and the trauma that these children are experiencing. That's why folks are opting to do this. And so, I just hope that folks have the compassion of thinking that if they were in the same types of situations, what you would do as a parent for your child, what you would do as a family member for your child to ensure that their life was saved. And that's what these families are having to do. And so with that, we certainly want to meet them there at that level of compassion. We want to make sure that we continue to address the needs that they will have as they come here and ensure that we can help to integrate them into the fabric of our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Rice. Very well said. Councilmember Glass would like to make some opening comments as well.
Thank you, Chair Albornoz, and very brief comments because you and Chair Rice have set the stage very eloquently about the compassionate conversation that we're about to undertake, because the bottom line is that we have not built walls around Montgomery County. And as people continue coming here because of the compassionate, caring community that we are, we need to figure out how to help them. And that is the story of America. That is the story of immigrants. And we're going to have this conversation to see how well equipped we are and what we need to do to make other people's lives better. So thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge Ms. Nicole Rodriguez Hernandez, who also helped put this packet together as well. We had a dream team work on this one because it covers a lot of different bases. So with that, Ms. McMillan, and if everyone could turn their cameras on, I know that we have a PowerPoint presentation that we are going to receive as well. But Ms. McMillan, I'll turn it over to you to walk us through the packet.
I actually think that you've gone through a lot of the opening comments. Your memo has data in it around the trends for unaccompanied children. We do have unaccompanied children every year, but we expect to see more migrant children and their families. And so I think I will just turn it over to Ms. Barnes and Dr. Kroll to introduce the presentation and then let DHHS and MCPS get started.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Raymond Kroll for the Department of Health and Human Services. Happy to have a chance to be with you all today to talk about this issue. It's important, obviously, and it is urgent that we attend to the challenge that's in front of us. I'll start this way. We've experienced this before, and the lessons that we learned from the task force and from our previous efforts at this are going to serve us well and serve the children well in this round. I expect. The number of unaccompanied children has been increasing exponentially in the last month, in the last several months. In October, November, December, we were looking at about 5,000 children a month that were coming across the border and being detained by U.S. Customs. In February, that number went to 9,000, and in March, it went to 18,000. So those numbers are ramping up, and we have clearly a growing need that we're going to have to face and deal with. And that's all according to U.S. Customs. The numbers for the county are not necessarily as clear or as high at this point, and you've got some of that in your packet, so I don't need to go into that. But given our history and given what we're seeing at the border, we know that the numbers are going to continue to rise and continue to mount for Montgomery County. We've seen in the packets in past years in excess of 1,000 boys and girls who've come across the borders and joined us here in the county. And I expect that this time the numbers will be much higher. And I think you'll hear some of that from the team. We also know that U.S. Customs and the Office of Refugee Resettlement don't necessarily account for all of the children who will show up in our midst here and will be coming to the county. There are very clever young ladies and gentlemen who are crossing the border who manage to avoid being apprehended by Border Patrol and Customs and make their way here in their own steam or with the support along the way. They're going to need our help as well. And so we have to be out looking for them and have to be out working to try to make sure that they know that they can get help here when they arrive in the county. What you're going to hear, I think, to hear from today is a team that we have put together that is built on the wisdom of our previous task forces and our previous experience, led by some folks who have some particular levels of expertise and knowledge of the county, and a commitment to service into this issue. To your point, Councilmember Albert knows this issue of partnering, planning and coordination across the county with our agencies and providers, with community members and interested partners in the county is going to be crucial this year. Along with partnering with federal government, ACF, Office of Refugee Resettlement, and their partners in the area, their regional partners as well, to make sure that that as children arrive here, we have things in place to make that landing as soft and as comfortable for them as possible, and to make sure that we can get them what they need and get them engaged in the county. You know, we are they're going to need help. We're anticipating a lot of needs, and you'll hear that today. Anticipating that they're going to need some help navigating in a new environment that is totally unfamiliar to them. They have healthcare needs that we're going to have to address. There's an effort for many of them for a reunification that we have to help them with families, with parents that they were parted from over the years and now are coming back together. In some cases, that reunification is going to be challenging. And in other cases, it will be very simple and straightforward, but we need to be there to facilitate that no matter what. Education and language issues are going to abound, and we know that one of the reasons we know that there were more children than were coming to us than were identified by the Office of Refugee Resettlement and the federal government is that they showed up in the schools and registered for schools and in numbers that were unexpected. So that's an issue that we know we have to anticipate and look out for this time. We also have a group of folks who are coming here and will be not when in fact we would like for them to continue their education and get connected to the educational system, will become part of the workforce, and figuring out how we find and identify them and support them and help them get on a great path in their lives is an important part of this. We've also got to address the trauma. In any normal year of children coming across the border and fleeing from violence and seeking safety and refuge, there is the trauma of that journey and the trauma of what drove them to leave their homes in the first place. This year, many thousands of them have been languishing at the border, just south of the border, unable to cross into the country and waiting for an opportunity to cross into the country. There are untold things that will have happened and things that they will have experienced in that condition at the south of the border that we now have to add to that level of trauma that we normally would have to deal with. We are gearing up and preparing to do that piece. And I just want to note that one of the things that I made a comment to the team this morning in an earlier call, that we have to pay special attention to the plight of the girls who traveled and made this journey as well. Whatever has happened as a group, the girls have been at some different levels of risk and have some different needs that we're going to have to pay attention to and address as we go forward. What we do with this says a lot about who we are in this county. And I know that our racial equity and social justice efforts in the last couple of years have made me proud to be here. I don't think this is any exception to that. This is another case of that, and a special case of that, but it is the same level of energy and commitment we've brought to racial equity and social justice we now have to bring to this. We want to make sure that folks understand that they are welcome in Montgomery County and welcome them to the community and welcome them home. So with that, I will stop and turn it over to Ms. Barnes and say happy to look forward to doing the work with the council and making this process, making this transition safe for the thousands of young men and women who are going to come our way. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all, and thank you for allowing us to provide this briefing. this is going to be a culmination of work that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks, HHS in conjunction with MCPS to both take advantage of lessons learned from the last time we saw a large number of unaccompanied minors come to the county, and also to make sure that we're better prepared this time around. I would like to introduce two young ladies that many of you already know that have recently come on board at HHS as consultants to help us move through the early stages of this work to make sure that we are coordinated, that we're better prepared, that we have the data that we have, and that we work in a collaborative manner. And I'm going to turn it over to them to lead us into our presentation, along with some of our colleagues from MCPS. Dr. Maria Navarro is working with HHS as one of the leads on unaccompanied minors. And the second consultant is Ms. Gillian Hubner. Maria, Gillian, myself, and Luis Cardona, I think, are forming the task force, so to speak, or the strike force out of HHS to make sure that we do all that we can on our side and that we're prepared to work and collaborate across the table with MCPS as well as with our community partners. So I don't want to repeat any of the worthy comments that have already been said. Why don't I turn it over to Gillian to start off the presentation.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
We might as well turn on the slides if they're easily accessible.
Yes.
And while we're setting that up, I'll extend my thanks to, it's really encouraging to see the political will here in Montgomery County. I've been working on this issue globally, but also nationally with UNICEF for the past year and a half. And not every county is responding with as much commitment and vision and leadership as you are here in Montgomery County. So I commend you for that. I think we have everything we need in Montgomery County to do the right thing here. We have political will, we also have cultural competency, and we have lots of community-based partners who have been through this before and are extremely well placed to provide an appropriate response. I would also say that we are compassionate, but more than that, we are committed to abiding by international and national law, which recognizes that all children have the right to seek protection, to apply for asylum, and to reunite with their families. This is a matter of compassion, but it's not only a matter of compassion. It's a matter of duty and obligation under law. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just a overview of, sorry, I need to move my slides because I can't see this slide. This is an overview of where we are in this critical moment, an urgent moment. The migration, as we've heard before, is cyclical, it's regular, it's not uncommon, this is not a new phenomenon. That said, given the blockages at the border over the past year, we're now facing a 20-year high in the number of unaccompanied migrant and asylum-seeking children approaching our border. So since the fiscal year, we've had nearly 50,000 kids enter across the border, so that's since October. And just since January, more than 34,000 unaccompanied children have arrived. The majority, as we've said before, are from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, and they're fleeing some of the highest rates of violence in the world. And as was mentioned prior, those coming from Guatemala specifically many of them are indigenous, not Spanish speaking. What we're seeing currently is that 72% of those arriving are over 14 years old and 68% are boys. They're really leaving very aggressive gang recruitment and threats. The majority that are coming here are seeking to reunify with family members in the United States. They're not just showing up with nowhere to go. They're not going to be in a long-term foster care situation. They're coming to reunite with their families. And we in Montgomery County are actually one of the primary destination areas. And that's not just because we're compassionate, it's because this is where their families live. So we're one of the top 10 receiving areas. So we are expecting that we may receive thousands of newly arriving children in the next few months by the end of the year. Next slide, please. So this is the process to get here. This is, covered widely in the media, and there's some misunderstanding of what the process is. So if a child is apprehended at the border, and this is of course understanding that not all are apprehended, some manage to come through undetected. If a child is apprehended at the border, they're immediately placed in a Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection detention facility for processing. Under law, they're not meant to stay there for longer than 72 hours. If they're identified as unaccompanied, they will be moved within 72 hours to Health and Human Services, the Office of Refugee Resettlement. And that's where their protection screenings begin and the family reunification process begins. So the average length of stay in those facilities is currently approximately 34 to 37 days. So we've seen the pictures of the jails, the detention facilities. Unfortunately, the current ORR facilities are not much better. They're currently trying to deal with the large numbers by building massive influx facilities. And these are not particularly well aligned with child welfare best practices and principles. They're large-scale institutions. For domestic children who are outside of family care, we're not meant to co-locate more than 25 children in one site. And here we have 10,000 bed facilities. But ORR's main purpose is to find the families and facilitate the reunification process. So once that is done, the child will then leave these facilities to be matched with a sponsor. Oftentimes those kids are traveling alone on bus, train, across the country from Texas, California, Michigan, or whatever before they come here. So 49% of them are released to a parent or a legal guardian, 41% to an immediate relative, and 10% to a distant relative. So they're arriving in Montgomery County to reunify with their families. Next slide, please. This just shows the waves of over the years. We often hear that the large numbers now are linked to political opportunity, but that's not in fact the case. If you look at the numbers here, you'll see in 2019, even when we didn't have political will and commitment to accepting these children, still large numbers were approaching that border. And that just reflects that these families and children are fleeing desperate circumstances. They're not just looking for political opportunity. In 2020, the numbers were quite low. That's because the border was closed. We invoked Title 42, which was a public health mandate keeping the borders closed. So these are all numbers from Customs and Border Patrol. On the other side, on the right, you can see the numbers from the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and this shows sort of the regional impact, the numbers of unaccompanied children arriving. So in 2019, we had over 1,000 unaccompanied minors arriving. 2014, quite a bit lower, but then we can see just in January and February, we've already received 100 into our county. And this is the official data. There's a lag, and it of course doesn't present the full picture. Next slide, please. So this is a view of who's en route, in fact. Most of these kids are still stuck in the border facilities, but you can see the big jump between January and March. It's going to continue to get high. This is actually the prime season for migration because of the weather. When we reach the summer months, it's much more difficult to cross into the country because of the heat and dryness and devastating conditions to journey. But we can also see here that it's not just unaccompanied children who are coming in, it's family units as well. So Montgomery County will not only be receiving unaccompanied migrant children, but we will in fact be receiving family units who have been let in. So based on these numbers, we're anticipating that we may receive 3,000 newly arriving children within our system by the end of the year. Of course, we can't say for certain, but these are estimates based on current trends. Next slide, please. So upon release from ORR, children are automatically placed in removal. That means deportation proceedings. So, there's often this political perception that if we let children in, they're going to stay here forever. Well, that's just factually not true. 90% of the children who don't have legal representation are ordered deported, and in fact, back to very extremely vulnerable, risky conditions. So upon release to their families from the Office of Refugee Resettlement, only 20% of these kids have access to federally funded post-release services. Most children and their families receive no reunification and reintegration support. So although we're spending billions of dollars at the border on these facilities, where kids should be theoretically no longer than 2 to 3 weeks, when they come into our communities and are here for the longer term, or at least through the length of their asylum process, they're not supported through federal funding. It's really up to state and county government to ensure that these kids get the support that they need and deserve. On an upside, all children do have the right to a free public K-12 education, regardless of their immigration status. And this is actually one of the pieces that sets the US apart from other countries around the world. So this also means that our schools are really frontline responders. This is where we're going to find the kids when they enter our county. Many of them will enroll in public education. Of course, many also arrive with debts and go immediately into work, especially considering that most of them who are arriving are 14 years and older. So ensuring that we create a pathway to education for them is critical. Also understanding that they have other obligations and are going to be inclined to work. So we've seen across the country some states and communities mobilizing services, and Montgomery County has an excellent track record in that regard. The difficulty, of course, is that the services that we have are maxed out currently. So we need to figure out how we can scale them up and meet sort of a burgeoning need. So our goal in this work is to mitigate these children's risks, build upon the assets that they have with their families and in our community, and coordinate and co-locate integrated services to make sure that they are successful as they land here. Next slide, please. So these are our guiding principles. Again, when I started, I referred to that we're obligated under law. These are rights and protections that are afforded to migrant and asylum-seeking children in our country and, in fact, under international law. So much of what we do needs to be based on the child's best interests. So often in emergency response, you'll see a response mobilized around the interests of the institutions or the agency. So for instance, at the border where we see these 10,000 bed facilities, that's in the interest of FEMA and HHS dealing at the border. It's not in the best interest of the kids. So we want to make sure that our work here in Montgomery County is really centering the best interests of the children. Our goal is to build a system of responsive and coordinated services, and that we need to connect our work with other local, state, and federal efforts. And we're committed to evidence-based practices and transparency. We're really going to be data-oriented moving forward. Next slide, please. So this is our goal as a coordinating committee. We're trying to build a pathway so that any child who enters our community, whether it's through the schools or at a bus station or coming to a county health clinic, that no matter where they go, they are met with people who understand the resources available to them. These are navigators who can help refer them to services that are coordinated and that we have referral pathways in place. This is why we're coordinating at kind of a county government level, but also with our community-based partners. So this is our goal as we move forward. Next slide, please. And this is over to you, I think, Maria, or maybe not.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
Yes, okay.
It is. So good afternoon, County Council members. It's really nice to see you again. So in Montgomery County, as Ms. Barnes mentioned, we put together a steering committee. And more comprehensively, you heard us talk about youth, but you also heard us talk about their families and the multiple ways in which they are coming to arriving in our county. So unaccompanied, migrant, and asylum seeking children is the focus of our work. You heard us use terms such as collaborative, coordinated processes. And so we want to ensure that we have cohesive interagency structures that support unaccompanied migrant and asylum seeking children. And we want to coordinate all of the cares, education, legal services, recreation, safety, and protection services. And so the steering committee brings together both county government, MCPS, HHS as sort of a core group of members, but it also brings other agencies and stakeholders to join us when we do deep dives into the multiple bodies of work that this entails. So you'll see, for example, recreation will join us at one point or another to go deep into the supports and the coordination with that agency as well. It is important for us to also coordinate, as Gillian mentioned, not only with state and federal agencies, but also locally. Prince George's County, the DC metro area, Northern Virginia. We need to keep abreast of what they're doing and coordinate our efforts. And we want to make sure that the data that we keep sometimes by agency actually begins to flow together and allow us to see some timely data on newly arriving youth to the county in a coordinated manner, and for us to more effectively and efficiently pinpoint services that are either needed or have been provided. I want to call out the Children Fleeing Violence Committee. I think you've mentioned for us to build upon strong structures and systems that we've had in place. And the Children Fleeing Violence Committee for us is an important one to go to often to seek both input and feedback and extend our community engagement as we tackle this work moving forward. I'm going to pass it to my friends in MCPS because I would like for them to detail some of the learnings and thinkings that they've started doing as we prepare to welcome many children and their families to the county in the next couple of months. Ms. Rubin, next slide, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And certainly our MCPS team, we lend ourselves to everything that has already been said about how very important this work is, timely. And so what we hope to detail in this part of the presentation is our intentional work, both within this collaboration of the steering committee, and then also within MCPS, right? We have an opportunity to be on our feet in order to deal with this. And so we hope that this illustrates our intention to do exactly that. So just to take you through a little bit about the enrollment process and how an unaccompanied minor gets into MCPS. You'll see there our little square boxes with our nice student who's well prepared with the pencil. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services do their part and are required to provide the care for unaccompanied children who are apprehended while crossing the border. Those children arrive and then they're released from federal custody, as I think you heard detailed very well at the beginning of the presentation by Gillian, to an appropriate sponsor. And this was important for us to reference because we wanted to also highlight that many of these children actually are coming to family members and do have that opportunity, right? At that point, the sponsor enrolls the child in one of our local public schools in MCPS. and then the student is assigned to that school, either in elementary, middle, or high. And just in the past, we have noted that we've seen our secondary schools being middle and high schools being the ones that face a brunt of the impact, but certainly also at the elementary level in our METS population, we need to be well prepared and well versed in receiving students there as well. Next slide. So we wanted to detail the enrollment process because certainly the circumstances have been different, right, with our structures in the COVID-19 pandemic and the virtual platform. So traditionally, the in-person process occurs at the Rocking Horse Center, where the student or parent, guardian, caregiver enrolls in person. They then at that point have to present all of the necessary documentation to establish residency, age, and past education. And we then test the students for ESOL placement if eligible. I would definitely be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the enrollment, International Enrollment and Admissions, and the work that they've done to stand up a virtual enrollment process that was almost seamless in their ability to really help and counsel parents through that process. And so it was developed as a result of COVID-19. All documentation was submitted either in a Dropbox. In many instances, they were working with parents online, on the phone, to guide them, walk them through step by step the process. And then the Dropbox component also called for us to work very closely with schools, make sure that you're going in the Dropbox, that you're picking up the information, and that it makes its way through the process. And I definitely want to acknowledge their commitment in making sure that that process was a closed loop, and making sure that our families were serviced. And then certainly any missing documents that come up, the scheduling of the testing, all of those things were handled in a way that was really intentional and really focused on building relationships, building trust, and making our families feel comfortable in this process. We really want to also take this opportunity to highlight something. Although our families appreciate the face-to-face attention at the appointments and the in-person model, we have long in Montgomery County felt like looking at our Rocking Horse location, the additional space that's needed, the personnel that's required to really coordinate the appointment process properly, to accommodate families in a meaningful way, is something that we're very much interested in. We've been limited by budget traditionally and a variety of factors from the operations standpoint. But this is something that we think would help the process to be in a space that's more welcoming and actually built to accommodate the families and their needs. And during this teleworking period, additionally, how do we build that into our regular processes? Because for many of our families, it worked for them for working purposes, a myriad of other things, to really be able to have someone help them do that online. We saw that as, and we received feedback from them that was actually very beneficial. So just a few things we wanted to highlight there. Next slide. And so the orientation process after students and families have completed the enrollment process includes identifying the needs of the students and families. And that goes beyond the academics. This is really where our partnership with HHS, as well as a myriad of other agencies, really comes into play as we think about the psychological, the emotional supports that our students and families need as a result of the various traumas that they faced and other potential conflicts, making sure that they're connected to those community resources, healthcare, food sustenance. All of those pieces are extremely, extremely important and a significant component of the process. It's important that we equip the families with as many tools and resources as possible so that the minute the student steps into one of our MCPS schools, that they're not coming from any additional disadvantages. And we can't say enough how being well-resourced is such an important part of this. We additionally ensure that the families have all of the contacts that they need for parent view, all of the online resources, and shoring up our staff, right, around how to deal with trauma and reunification and how to guide the families and where those resources are located and who they should go to is a significant part of the work that we do as well. Next slide. And so what are some of those supports that are available for immigrant students and our unaccompanied minors? You've heard a little bit already about the Children Fleeing Violence Committee. This is important because there are a variety of voices at the table in this particular venue that really have insight and perspective that is not only relevant, but instrumental to ensuring the wellness of the families, enrollment across farms, the IAE orientation that needs to happen, our Parent Academy workshops that are presented fully in Spanish to make sure that we are meeting all of our families exactly at the place where they need those supports, and the toolkits, our trauma-informed courses. All of these things are intentional components that we've built in MCPS to ensure that we have a coordinated effort, that we have an interagency effort and partnership so that there are no holes that any of our students are able to fall through. And so these things help us to produce that sense of trust, that sense of relationship, and that sense of ease that many of our students and families need as they're going through this process. And we can't say enough about how important the support of County Council has been, just the timeliness and taking this on in such a meaningful way. So we certainly appreciate being part of the conversation and the work. With that, I think I'm passing it to Joanne for our last couple of slides.
I think it's me, actually. Oh. That's okay. We work quite closely together, so it's all good. We could all present these slides. So this is what we're aiming for, the child at the center, and all of us working together to deliver a comprehensive, coordinated, and effective response. Next slide, please. So we're working now on building a coordinated interagency action plan, and these are the main components. Right now we're mapping what currently exists, and this is a very data-based process. We're really looking at numbers, capacity, caseloads, and we're really being honest with ourselves and each other about lessons learned so that we can really key up what we've learned from the last waves of young people entering our system and figure out how to do it better. With the projections of 3,000 kids potentially arriving by the end of the year, we're looking at where there is potential for scale up and what that will cost in terms of human and financial resources. So we should have a better sense of that in the next coming weeks. So these are the key components. The reception, the focus on reception. So now we're working really quite closely with ORR to figure out how to facilitate a warm handoff for these kids. Currently, there's no coordination mechanism in place at all. So once ORR releases children to their sponsors, they're done. they have no obligation to tell us who's coming, how many. Of course, they are reasonably, they're protective of the children's identities, understanding that information about who's arriving, what their names are, who they are, falling into nefarious hands could compromise the children's well-being. So that's not what we're looking for so much, is just getting a sense of how many kids are en route, time frames, that kind of thing. And we want to make sure that as a child is released from ORR, that they have, before they leave, information about where they're coming and what's going to be available to them upon arrival. So we're going to be working on some innovative communication strategies with that, probably QR codes, that kind of thing. So if a kid, anyway along the route into Montgomery County, can access information about supports upon arrival. So we're going to also be looking at hiring or identifying some newcomer navigators, people who are culturally competent, bilingual, multilingual, and able to help our kids find their resources upon entrance to Montgomery County. And, you know, possibly also developing some newcomer welcome hubs where there's, you know, people who understand the full range of services. So we also understand that we need to wrap around our families with critical supports, and this includes helping them through the family-child reunification process. So many of these kids haven't seen their families in many years, some ever, and so that process can be really stressful, especially given what they're coming into. These families have already been hit hard by COVID and have, you know, really thin capacity. So we also understand that the schools are a primary focus area, and we really want to lift up the schools as a primary intervention point. We've seen in some places around the country really excellent models in integrating newcomer orientation programs where newly arriving students are co-located with integrated services at the school, and that might include you know, a legal service provider in the school building or adjacent to the school building. And, you know, this also means, and I can't emphasize this enough, the need to support our staff and our administrators, but also our host community students to receive these children and welcome them warmly with cultural sensitivity and awareness about what they've been through without also compromising these kids' privacy. There are so many great models out there, and you know, they're already operating in the county, and the question is how do we scale them up and really bring them into all the situations in which these newly arriving kids will be. And then the safety and security piece, that's not small, right? So many of these kids are fleeing violence, and they're at risk of violence in Montgomery County too. They're at risk of gang recruitment and trafficking and other kinds of exploitation. So we need to work quite closely with community partners and the police to make sure that we are protecting these children too, and also making it very clear to community partners that immigration enforcement is not allowed at schools, it's not allowed at churches. There are safe spaces for these children. Next slide, please.
And so I'll take this slide and just summarize that you heard us going into multiple buckets of our detailed work for reflecting on past practices, how to maximize our current existing resources, and then rethink the approach and pinpoint specific resources. What we commit to is coming to you and government leaders, as well as the community at large, to keep you abreast on our work together, our progress, our needs, and our asks. And so with that, I will yield it back to you, Councilmember Albornoz, and thank you.
Wow, that was impressive. That was great. Just on so many different levels, just seeing the level of coordination, the infrastructure that had already been in place, but the coordination and the connection of the dots is really important, particularly now. So, and seeing Ms. Hubner and Dr. Navarro lead us through that presentation collaboratively was wonderful. Next, we're going to hear from Juanita Cabrera Lopez, the Executive Director of the International Mayan League. As was noted by Ms. Hubner, many of the children and youth who are fleeing violence, in particular those coming from Guatemala, come from indigenous backgrounds. And so that is an additional layer which I came to really appreciate when Juanita and I visited the border together several years ago. We had the opportunity to visit with Sister Norma Pimenta, who works on the border in McAllen, Texas, at one of the points of contact where families receive care and love and attention. And as is often the case, these children and youth come with nothing more than the shirts on their backs or little backpacks that often include stuffed animals or something that keeps them together. In that visit, I learned so much from Juanita, and I'm honored that she accepted our invitation to come here this afternoon to shed some light from her perspective on what her and her organization are seeing, in particular with this most recent wave. And then after her presentation and discussion, we will open it up in general for questions of the entire group. So, Juanita.
Juanita. Good afternoon. My name is Juanita. I'm sending you greetings from Maryland, but it's actually Piscataway Nation territory. Thank you so much, Council President Hucker and friend and Council Vice President Albornoz. It's a pleasure and honor to be here, and all county council members. We will actually be providing a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm not sure if it's possible for us to share screen. And I will actually hand off the first part of the presentation to my colleague Mercedes Sai from the Maya Quiche people. She will be speaking in Spanish with consecutive interpretation for those who need it. So I'm wondering if we may be able to share screen. I'm not sure who's doing tech.
We can do that, and if the tech team could allow the sharing, that would be great.
Screen sharing is enabled.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can you see the screen?
We can see that it's being shared, but we can't see the slide yet. There it is.
Okay. So I will pass the mic over to my colleague Mercedes.
Buenos días a todos. Es un gusto para mí estar con ustedes esta mañana.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure for me to be with you today.
Mi nombre es Mercedes Sai, de la Nación Maya Quiche, Guatemala.
My name is Mercedes Sai. I'm of the Mayan Quiche Nation in Guatemala.
Estaba escuchando las presentaciones que ustedes tienen, me parecen interesantes. También estaba escuchando que en algún momento pues no entienden por qué razón nuestros niños están viniendo no acompañados.
I've been listening to the presentations you've been making. These are interesting. I want to make sure that you understand why the children are coming.
Nuestro territorio, Guatemala, tiene 22 departamentos y también tenemos 22 idiomas mayas propios de los lugares.
In Guatemala, we have 22 departments and we have 22 languages of Mayan people.
Nosotros dentro del territorio habemos mayas, garífonas, xincas y mestizos. Somos 4 grupos étnicos los que convivimos.
In Guatemala, we have 4 ethnic groups, the Mayans, the Garífonas, the Xincas, and mestizos.
Cuando decimos del por qué los niños vienen no acompañados y en su mayoría son mayablantes, es porque los territorios de nuestros abuelos y abuelas han sido despojados de nuestros hermanos y hermanas que vivimos allá.
It's because when we ask ourselves, why are unaccompanied minors coming? Well, basically because the Mayan-speaking people, why are Mayan-speaking children coming? They're because the territories of our people have been destroyed.
Desde el conflicto armado en los años 80, el desplazamiento se ha ido incrementando y ahora aún mucho más. El estado de nosotros ha sido cooptado por las élites que dominan el país, en este caso las élites empresariales. Esa es una de las razones del por qué muchos de nuestros hermanos y niños están llegando a este territorio.
Since the 1980s, there have been increasing numbers of people pushed off the land, and the numbers coming have been increasing. The development of the land has been dominated by elites, and these elites in current years are primarily commercial business elites.
Empezamos por la privatización y el saqueo de nuestros recursos naturales. Los mayas somos cuidadosos siempre de nuestra madre tierra, pero las transnacionales han llegado a nuestros territorios a invadirnos y a explotar todos nuestros recursos naturales, dejándonos sin agua, dejándonos sin alimentos, dejándonos sin el sustento básico que tenemos como derecho los seres humanos.
Let's start when we look at the destruction of our opportunities to live, the sacking of our natural resources. We have to realize the Mayan people have historically been protective of Mother Earth, but the transnationals have particularly destroyed it. We are left without water. We're left without the means to grow our own food. We're left with a need to move.
Si podemos ver un poquito la presentación, en la foto de arriba es un río caudaloso, el río Cabón, que ahora es propiedad de una empresa privada y que nos vende la energía eléctrica, y las comunidades se han quedado sin agua para sus animales y para consumo propio. Este río era el que alimentaba a varios territorios y muchas de esas personas ahora están llegando aquí. Ellos son nuestros hermanos quechíes.
In this picture that you see at the top, you see there's a fast-moving, rapidly running river. We'd been depending on it, but now it's controlled by private enterprise. And the people that are looking at here, you see in the photograph, are people who've been pushed off their land by the lack of water.
Las transnacionales que van de muchos países tienen sus territorios hermosos, bonitos, atractivos, pero nuestros territorios están siendo despojados, están siendo empobrecidos. Y esa es la razón por la que migramos. El hambre, la pobreza, la falta de los servicios básicos que un Estado debe proveer a sus ciudadanos es lo que ha hecho que nosotros salgamos.
The transnationals come from places that are beautiful, beautiful territories that transnationals come from. But here they leave us with hunger and an inability to raise our food and the lack of basic services that a government should be providing its people. So people need to leave, and that's why they're coming here.
Sí, es interesante mencionar que la mayor parte de nuestros niños, que murieron a manos de la custodia de la patrulla fronteriza en los años pasados, son niños mayas de las comunidades más pobres del occidente de nuestro país. La primera que mataron fue Claudia María, de un disparo. Luego está nuestra hermana de 7 años, Maya Quechí. También nuestro hermanito de 8 años, de 16 años. Un bebé de 2 meses y 2 adolescentes de 16 años. Es triste para nosotros que esto pase. La única razón es que estamos buscando nada más cómo llenar el vacío de alimentación, que a veces arriesgan la vida. Prefieren morir en el camino que morir de hambre en nuestros territorios.
It is it's interesting to point out that the children who have died on the border coming north are predominantly Mayan children. The first of these was Claudia, who was shot, simply shot on the border. Then we have other children, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old child, Felipe, a 16-year-old boy, all the way down to a baby of 2 years old. These are children that are shot on the border. It's sad that this is happening simply because we're trying to fill the vacuum that we need food, we need to be able to live.
Esa es la realidad y no tenemos más tiempo para seguir hablando, pero es interesante conocer tal vez un poquito más de la historia, del por qué venimos y que no queremos hacer daño más que trabajar.
This is the reality. This is the reality. We could talk much more, but we won't take more time. But it is important to understand that this is happening. We don't want to cause any damage. We don't want to cause any harm, but we just want to survive.
Gracias, Mercedes. Thank you, Mercedes.
Muchas gracias, Mercedes.
And now I'm going to present a little bit more on specifically the county context and the local context and some of the work that the organization has been leading. So I'm just going to go back. Okay. So during this past year, we did a lot of COVID mutual work in response to the situation in the community. And as has already been noted in previous presentations, the largest numbers through ORR are from Guatemala. The largest numbers through apprehensions at the border are from Guatemala. And as Mercedes has already stated, we are a plurinational state. We're not ethnic groups. We're indigenous nations. We're indigenous peoples who speak our indigenous languages. We're 22 distinct, diverse Maya nations. And so as entire nations and peoples are being disrupted at this moment, many are arriving here in the DC metropolitan region. There, I think, is a lot of confusion in terms of identifying us as who we are as indigenous, because we're often mislabeled as Hispanic or Latino, when in fact we are Native American people. So part of the problem in the data, and as you all talked about data collection and data sets, is that we're becoming misclassified and miscategorized and therefore erased and invisible. And so as this happens, there's impacts in the schools, in social services, in response, because our identities become erased in the process. And so what we've really seen with some of our border research, we've gone down to the border. I did go to Texas, but we spent about a week in Arizona in Tucson. And we were able to collect data with about 40 asylum seekers, mostly women, mostly indigenous. And what we really saw is that there are particular vulnerabilities because of our indigenous identity, because of language exclusion, racism, discrimination, and historical trauma. And add into that the nexus of gender for girls and women, trafficking, sexual violence, and added to that the lack of an ability to tell people what's happening because you literally can't communicate. So what we saw in our work this past year is that we actually hold the most data in all of the regions specific to indigenous peoples. There is no disaggregated data, and if I'm wrong, I hope that somebody could correct me. But at any of the county levels, there's no data that's being disaggregated to show if it's indigenous and which particular indigenous nation. At the school level, I don't think that this is happening. Social services, legal services, there's no data that's being collected. So the data that we have here is actually, it's not huge, but it's the only one that exists in this region. We served 163 households that self-identify as indigenous, over 600 who self-identify as indigenous. And this is all through providing food, providing masks, hand sanitizers, because many in our community did not actually qualify for some of the federal relief because of status, because of fear. And so they oftentimes came to our organization. Based on this data, we were able to locate where our people are per zip code and per state and per indigenous peoples. We just started mapping this out. This is brand new. We're still rolling it out at this point. But as you see here, this is not just something within Montgomery County. This is, as somebody said in an earlier presentation, there needs to be coordinated response amongst the agencies, amongst the states, because we see here, just in Virginia and Maryland, Ishir, Quiche, Mum, Achi, and some people who are not on this graph yet, such as Kekchi and Kakchikel. So we already see families who are here who possibly they're waiting for their children and others from their communities coming in. So here we already have a mapping of the diversity of what is invisible at the county and at the regional level. Most of the MUM people that we have served are actually in our sister county, Prince George's County. So any type of a response should be close coordination within the counties. But as you see in zip code 20903, because it's a border zip code, there are some MUM families who are in this area. We were also able to see that there's a larger percentage of women headed households, and also start looking at how many people might be in a household. So based on this, I'll head to the recommendations since I know we're over time. It was really good to hear that there are interagency collaborations and working groups that are happening. And within that spirit, I think the recommendations that we're putting forth fit into that model. We're very concerned that a huge percentage of children through ORR and other situations are predominantly from Guatemala, which means that it is an indigenous majority amount of children who are being absolutely invisible in the process because of misidentification or lack of identity in formal reports and documents. And therefore, the services and experiences that they receive are hindered by those miscategorizations. So first and foremost, and this is an international human rights that we have, promote good practice through consultation with indigenous leadership, not only in the diaspora, but also of Piscataway Nation, who is the state-recognized Indian tribe and who has already been supporting indigenous peoples of the diaspora. And we consulted these recommendations with them, and they're also in agreement with these recommendations. There are already indigenous-led efforts in the area. There's already indigenous leadership in the area. So support strategies that we are already developing that are rooted in our experiences, our knowledge, our culture, priorities already developed with our communities. One of the biggest obstacles for full enjoyment of our human rights, whether it's in school, education, employment, the whole host is language access. So perhaps do an Indigenous language advisory group specifically for Indigenous language resource development. This is especially something that could tie in and impacts the schools. And then the last key recommendation that we had was to establish some sort of task force or working group specifically focused from a big level approach on Indigenous people's human rights. This type of task force, I don't think exists anywhere in the country, so this could be a really good model that Montgomery County also puts forward as an example of how to address some of the needs and gaps. And so part of this working group would be to establish good coordination, consultation that could lead to things like data collection, the disaggregated data, and then also looking at some of the newcomer models that are working in some of the areas that have indigenous large populations, such as Palm Beach County in Florida. They actually have an indigenous, they have a Maya team in their school that does a lot of work to do enrollment and that sort of process. And there's also a pretty strong model as well in California with the Maya Mum community in Oakland. And so perhaps looking at some of those existing models that have been developed over years of advocacy and expertise from the indigenous leadership themselves with local government officials could also be a way to think of processes. So really to end on our presentation is that we're really excited that there is such an open conversation that's occurring and that you are reaching out to community leaders and organizations. And I do think that there is not only a responsibility and obligation, as has been mentioned before, but also an opportunity to show on how things could be done and scaled up in terms of human rights, humanity, and inclusivity. And so thank you so much for the space and the time, and I look forward to continuing the discussion.
I'm going to be candid. I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now. This is really important and really helpful on so many different levels. And I just feel like the infrastructure and construct we've created here based on the lessons learned and what we just heard in that presentation really does put us in a position to be a national model, which is quite frankly what we should be. And so I'm feeling pretty optimistic based on the presentations today and what's to come, that we're going to do as much as we can, as best as we can, to serve the needs of these kids. And it's powerful on a lot of levels. So I did have a couple of questions. So obviously this initial presentation was to get a better sense of where we are as a county in preparing, and then to hear a little bit more of the background and context, both from the federal level and what we're seeing internationally. But needless to say, there are a number of key community-based organizations and partners who are part of this work as well. And we're fortunate to have that infrastructure here in place. And so I guess, Ms. Barnes, I know that right now we've been working appropriately over the last month to get our own system in place, acknowledging the challenges all of us have faced this last year and the level of disorientation and the challenges currently within our families. But I know that you value as much as I do our community-based organizations and partners. Can you talk a little bit about, or Gillian or Dr. Navarro, or anybody, how you envision incorporating this really important work and extending it out? Is it through the task force or the work group or the steering committee, or how are we involving community-based organizations and partners that are also on the front lines doing this great work?
Initially, we are starting with the community partners that are and have been for a while a part of the Children Fleeing Violence Work Group. We thought instead of pulling another group together, there are many of our partners who are known to have to provide service in the Latino community and that have been involved with what we did in 2019 are part of that Children Fleeing Violence Work Group. When we initially came together with MCPS, we noted that the Children Fleeing Violence Work Group initially started in the County Executive's Office of Community Partnership. So we're making a reconnection there because we know that Margarita and Everett and their team will have a lot on their hands dealing with the work on the ground. So we're looking at who's in that group, who else we need to pull in. But that work has already started. Dr. Navarro and Gillian Hubner did a presentation and joined them on last Thursday. And so we'll look at that group and see who else we need to bring in.
And we're discussing this as, again, totally appropriate within the construct of our current systems. Yes. But as we know, the love and care these families need go beyond what we can provide. And so are we working with faith-based organizations or even MCCPTA and other parent organizations who may, we have such incredible infrastructure here from our community and civic activists who want to help. and sometimes may not be affiliated with a specific organization. And I was so blown away by the messages and I'm sure some of you received from community residents, seeing those horrific images of those thousands of kids being held in these situations in this last month, and just bringing back horrible images and memories. How can people help if they want to help? Where would be a good place to send folks that want to volunteer in some way, or that, as we've learned through our hub model, addressing food security issues, faith-based organizations have become a tremendous partner in expanding our reach. And so how are we working with some of those other organizations who may not be formally organized necessarily or are new to this space?
I will start, and others may want to add. Just yesterday, I spoke with a young lady about how her sorority might help in this process. And what I recommended to her is that we develop certain entry points through some of our community partners that will be doing work with families once they are here. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that we can recommend that they do prior to the youth are here when we have identified them. I suggested, and this is new information, I have not yet talked to Rochelle and Margarita, that there are things that faith-based and nonprofits can do to help provide not only supports to the families, but supports and help us develop a sense of camaraderie with the young children that are here. One of our goals is to make sure that we expose them to a welcoming community. And a lot of that work will be done with the help of faith-based and smaller community-based organizations. So I'll stop there and see if others want to add.
Councilmember, wanted to, I know the other folks will weigh in on this, but I wanted to just register first a note of appreciation for Ms. Cabrera and the information that she shared with us today. You know, we were aware that there were some ethnic and some linguistic issues that we were going to have to address in this process. You've taken us to a deeper level of understanding, and I still think that is just the tip of the iceberg. Councilmember Albornoz, the thought that crosses my mind in this moment is that we, just looking at the linguistic issues that were laid out before us today, our capacity to do that within the department and within county government is incredibly limited. And so there's a need for us to engage with members of the community who are from those cultures, who understand those cultures, who can both continue to school us in terms of the appropriate ways to engage, but also help us with some of the linguistic challenges that we're going to have with them as these children come to us. So those are at least a couple of things, and I'm suspecting that we can undoubtedly work out in fairly short order a route for volunteers. We have routes for volunteers, and we've been using it to great extent, to great use for this past year. But so I don't want to throw my colleagues into that mix without talking with them. But I think we can stand up something so that folks can have a route into us, and we can build the supports we need.
I would add one other thing. One of our goals is to look at how we can coordinate with the community resource hubs that are already in the community, that are already known to residents in the community that might be interested in lending support. The other thing that I would add, Gillian has been very involved in meeting with with different contacts at the federal level. Luis and I have met with staff at the governor's office. One of the things that we have impressed to them is that we need help with resources after children are reunified. Reunification isn't the end of work. It's actually the beginning of a new body of work. And so while they haven't actively been thinking about how they might communicate with local jurisdictions, we're continuing to impress upon them that the rubber hits the road here in the local jurisdictions once children are reunified, and that we are definitely open to being an experiment, if you say it that way, and hopeful that some funds will come along with that. And we've been pretty clear about laying out what we see as the right way of doing things, and that we're not really interested in seeing, huge facilities in Montgomery County, but we're definitely open to being a model. And they've indicated that they will continue to work closely with us. So I think we've been trying to reach out in many directions in these early weeks to see what support we have that we can bring back together to the group as we continue to build out our processes here locally.
That's really helpful. I have a few more questions, and then if colleagues, you have questions or comments you want to add, please just text me. So obviously these children and youth are, vulnerable is not the right word. It just goes so much deeper than that. And as is often happens sometimes, and I have professional development experience in this, having worked for an organization called the Latin American Youth Center. There are times where as through that vulnerability, there's a criminal element or exposure that is real, and that is something that I know Luis Cardona and the Street Outreach Network and many of us have been working on for quite some time. We're in a tenuous situation right now as we think through the redevelopment and as we reimagine the manner in which we police here in Montgomery County, but ensuring different entry points so that people can report criminal situations remains very important, and the relationships there remain very important. Luis, could you talk a little bit about not just from that lens specifically, but in general, the importance of the collaboration and partnership in addition to MCPS, HHS, but extending out to other government agencies such as police and other key partners here that are in a role to help families who are in crisis and in need or prevent something bad from happening?
No, thank you very much. Luis Cardona, Administrator for HHS Positive Youth Development Program. It's a real good question, Councilmember Albornoz. I believe both you and I and former Chief Tom Major and Councilmember Navarro were at a town hall in Gettysburg, I believe in 2016, where there were several hundred families that packed the St. Martin's cafeteria, where it was really clear that these communities were not reporting crime for obvious reasons. And a lot of that was not necessarily distrust. It was really clear that they understood that our police department does not enforce federal immigration law. But just the fear of the retaliation played a huge factor, and something that's going to be very critical for us. Ironically, some of the best outcomes that we have for young people, and I know this is a very delicate subject, came about through the relationships that many of these children develop with SROs. And so, that's the catch. It's like, we're going to have to figure out as we move forward with our new strategy to respond to the needs of these children, especially at the secondary school level and their families, how we connect in a way that trust is really set up. And I just want to applaud Juanita and Mercedes for what they said, because I do believe that gives us the foundation for how we approach the young people and families with a better understanding of where they're at, but also how we approach them in a dignified way as to not trigger, as to not stigmatize either. So, I wish I had a better answer for you, but I can tell you that it was those kind of strategies that got us to the point where we developed Soccer for Change, right, in our partnership with the Recreation Department. But we do have to be very vigilant in understanding that there are those criminal elements that were already here. They've been here. They didn't just arrive. They've been here for a long time. And if they weren't here, you wouldn't have someone like me in this county, right, doing this kind of work. Obviously, it's a problem that's been here for a while. And so with that said, we have to make sure we establish the kind of trust with this community. And I'm really excited about all the efforts under the leadership of Raymond, Joanne, Rochelle, Maria, and Gillian, because I believe it's going to get us to where we need to be so that it's all done in a very seamless way to address these issues. I do lastly want to echo what my boss said. Joanne is on point, 100%. The full burden of this responsibility should not just fall on Montgomery County. The federal government, as well as our governor, has to also support and step up and provide some supports here for us to do this in a good way if we are going to be successful.
Amen. And I want to give a lot of credit to my colleagues, council members Rice and Jawando, who are spearheading an effort to get a number of important and in particular youth voices as we work in tandem on reimagining the manner in which we provide school security within our communities. And so I'm sure they've noted these comments, and I know they believe passionately as I do, and I've had conversations with both of them, and I just so respect their leadership here in acknowledging we can do all these things. We need an infrastructure in place that addresses the holistic needs of all of our children, youth, and families, with a special emphasis on those families that need the most help. And as we're hearing here now through this presentation, I think there's an opportunity for us to, as part of that work, ensure that we have the infrastructure in place necessary to meet the, as best we can, holistic needs of these children, youth, and families. So I'm confident that that's going to happen. And I feel like we're right in the middle of it, and it's evolving. But this is, on many levels, an exciting time as we think through these really complex issues. My last few questions, Juanita and señora Saí, gracias por esa presentación. Fue increíble y sumamente importante en este momento. Thank you, Ms. Saí, for your presentation. It was impactful and powerful and incredibly important right now. I'll be candid. I have a lot yet to learn, and I look forward to following up with you, Juanita, because I'd like to learn more about this rich heritage and the different dialects. But can you talk a little bit about? And I apologize, there's some landscaping going on in my front yard right now. But could you talk a little bit about what infrastructure that you're familiar with currently exists within our DC region in terms of resources that on a community level that we may be able to refer some families to, or other partners that you think we should invite to the table as we have these discussions?
Thank you. I'll share the space with Mercedes as well. Unfortunately, I don't have a very positive response. If we're looking from an indigenous lens on what resources are out there, we're the resource. Again, this goes back to the fact that indigenous peoples in the DC region, and actually I missed something very important. The data from community members themselves reflect numbers of 25 to 30,000. Across the DMV of Mam, Ishil, and all of the other nations that we mentioned, which means there's a large group of people, population sector, whose needs are not being met from mainstream organizations. There's a lot of, networks within our own communities, through families, through communities, but in terms of the social services, the legal services, the schools themselves, the ESL programs, they don't realize until later. They say, oh, now we understand why they couldn't understand Spanish, because there's such a huge gap. So again, I think community leadership may not necessarily be organized within coalition spaces, but there are community leaders. and we've certainly worked with them this past year. Our organization, we also work closely with Centerville Immigration Forum. They're one of our key partners out in Fairfax County, who works predominantly with the Maya Ixil community. I'll give the word to Mercedes. Mercedes.
Sí, estamos organizados dentro de este territorio en varias comunidades. Estamos trabajando ahora con la comunidad Ixil en Virginia. Estamos también trabajando con la comunidad MAM en Langley Park. Estamos trabajando con comunidades quichés aquí en Maryland, en Baltimore, en DC. Entonces hemos identificado a las comunidades. Ay.
Voy a interpretar, gracias. Sí, estamos organizado en, we are organized in various ways. We're working with the Ixil people in Virginia and with MOM communities in Langley Park, with other organizations, with the Quiché community in Baltimore and DC and other parts of Maryland.
Sí, y estamos trabajando prácticamente toda la información relacionada desde que inició el COVID en nuestros idiomas mayas.
And since COVID started, we're providing all of the information in our native languages, our Mayan languages.
Estamos haciendo videos informativos para que nuestras comunidades entiendan de qué se trata, cómo cuidarse. Ahora estamos trabajando el tema también de las vacunas y ese es un recurso que nos preocupa ahorita, en este momento.
We have been creating videos so that our people understand how to take care of themselves in the face of COVID, how to care for themselves, and the whole topic of vaccinations. That really concerns us.
Porque la mayoría de las comunidades tienen muy poco conocimiento al acceso de los formularios, de los lugares a donde podemos acudir para la vacunación. Tal vez no es que no encuentren un link, simplemente es que nos es difícil llenar las preguntas que vienen dentro de los formularios.
In most of the communities, we have a problem of a lack of knowledge. It's not just knowing where to go to find a link to get a vaccination or finding the link. That sometimes isn't the only problem. It's actually figuring out how to answer those questions.
En nuestras comunidades de origen funciona más porque esto no es solo un problema de aquí, no es un problema que lo estamos viendo aquí, sino que lo estamos viendo también desde allá porque nuestras comunidades son muy celosas de lo que somos. Entonces es difícil para ellos confiar en alguna persona que llegue a decirles que tienen que hacer tal cosa.
Well, we have an additional level of problem, and that's that our problem, and that affects our problems here as well as there. Our people are sometimes very careful about talking about themselves to other people. They don't want to provide information.
Y esto no significa que no entendamos, simplemente es que no confiamos.
This doesn't mean that we don't understand. This may mean that we just don't trust.
Por todo lo que hemos vivido por más de 500 años los pueblos y hemos sobrevivido, esta ha sido una forma de resistencia.
Yeah, for all we've been through for 500 years, this is a form of resistance.
Es por esa razón que nosotros como organización estamos tratando de hacer ese material nuevamente en nuestros idiomas y buscar el apoyo de alguna manera de las organizaciones del Estado para que nos facilite hacer alguna campaña que facilite a nuestra gente llegar a algún lugar a vacunarse sin necesidad de mucha registración y nosotros informar que el acceso va a ser mucho más fácil. De esa manera, ellos van a poder ir y acceder a las vacunas.
This is why we're trying to put this information in our native languages, and we're working to get public entities, state entities, to help us make this resource actually accessible so people don't have to jump through hoops to get there.
Dentro de tantas preocupaciones, esa es la que nos preocupa ahora, porque tenemos a mucha población maya hablante, que es la que nosotros estamos comunicándonos de alguna manera, tratando de comunicarnos de alguna manera.
This is the problem that really bothers us and worries us the most, because we have so many Mayan-speaking people who need this assistance.
Igual que para funcionar, nosotros también necesitamos del apoyo para hacer nuestro material audiovisual, necesitamos recursos. Somos una organización pequeña que no contamos con los recursos, entonces la mayoría de los que estamos dentro de la organización somos voluntarios. Y eso también hace que se nos dificulte un poquito el trabajo, porque tenemos que trabajar, aparte estar involucrados con la comunidad y aparte trabajar los materiales. Entonces, sí necesitamos de todo el apoyo de ustedes, de los que nos pudieran apoyar en relación a darnos material que pudiéramos difundir, pero que no sea tan largo como los tres o cuatro hojas de formularios que a veces hay.
We need resources. Those of us who are doing this, trying to create these audiovisual materials, we need resources. We need your support. We are primarily people who are working as volunteers. We lack resources. We as volunteers need to spend time earning a living, and we need to work on these, and we need to be with our Mayan communities doing outreach. And so we do need your support. We need material we can share, and that's preferably not long forms to fill out.
Termino diciendo que estamos también trabajando el tema de interpretación. Tenemos a hermanos y hermanas que interpretan para los idiomas, y también estamos trabajando en eso porque necesitamos ese recurso. Y agradezco mucho el espacio que nos han abierto. Esperamos seguir en comunicación con ustedes, y pues voy a dejar a la hermana Juanita para que continúe.
I'm also going to say that we've been working on to develop interpreters among our people, have them learn to be interpreters. I want to thank you for the space that you've given me to speak with you today.
Gracias, señora Saí. Eso fue también sumamente importante. Thank you so much, Ms. Saí. That was just also a incredibly important message. And just point of privilege here, this is a phenomenal thing. We've had a record number of people this last year request translation before the council as they testified or presented presentations, which warms my heart. And I got to give you a shout out, Ms. Lavoie. You are doing a great job with interpretation. I've been meaning to say that publicly for quite some time now, but I just want to express my appreciation to you. I don't know where we found you, but I'm happy you're here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jawando had some questions or thoughts.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. And Ms. Lavoie, I will agree with that. I'm boning up on my Espanol. I'm in class at Montgomery College. And as I was listening to you, it's it was almost, as a native English speaker, it was almost simultaneous. It was easy. The way you did it, it was seamless. It just didn't bother me. I see some heads nodding. It was great. So thank you. And it actually helped my understanding of the Spanish side. So first, I agree with Councilmember Arbanaz. This is really important, and I'm so glad we're having this session and being able to, during budget time, dedicate this amount of time to something that is this important. I'm also really appreciative of HHS and MCPS and our entire team that has pulled together this working group that already aware of what's going on, and the community members. And Jillian, it's great to, we met offline. I know you met with some of us, and we have an embarrassment of riches in Montgomery County as far as the expertise we have right in our backyard, and you are an example of that. So thank you. Couple of just really specific questions. It was mentioned about COVID, and Mercedes, you just said something about this, but it's kind of a general question. Is part of what we're looking at, I hope so, the protocol around making sure that everyone is getting the health care and vaccination opportunity that once we are set to receive, just kind of the medical health side of this in the middle of a pandemic, is that on our radar? Is that already handled by national HHS when they come in? And what do we know about that process and what's going on there?
Councilmember Jawando, it is very much on our radar, and I know that Gillian and your team can talk about what they understand is going on at the federal level as folks come in. Presumably, some quality healthcare screening and assessment, including testing and potentially vaccination. But we are not leaving that to chance. We have a refugee clinic as part of our Dennis Avenue Health Center, and I was on the phone with them this morning, and they will be part of this process of how we plan for for folks coming into the county, including I know because I'm where I sit in the chair. I sit in. They will include testing and, if necessary, vaccination for folks that are coming in as appropriate for their age.
Great, awesome. I figured that was the case, but I'd like to hear that it is, and also dispel any rumors or myths that might be out there about it not happening or not being the case. Also, we have a diverse population here, right, of Latin American, Central American residents, right, a large Salvadoran population, right. We are home to two of the largest Salvadoran population outside of El Salvador and the largest Ethiopian population outside of Ethiopia. So we've got a couple continents covered here. It's one of the great things about Montgomery County. But obviously there's a mix, and I think today underscored that. We have a large Guatemalan population. We have other countries. And to what extent this conversation just made me think of what are the other sub-populations or within Central America or different countries that are coming, and do we have a sense of that based on previous numbers? Jillian, you showed a bunch of charts before about when you had part of the natural migration patterns. Is that something that is tracked and that we have a sense of, and that we can tailor our, based on previous trends? It might be higher numbers, but we can start to, be prepared and tailor our cultural responsiveness to what we might see.
The numbers nationally are tracked by country of origin, not by indigenous group. So we would have to drill down to the next level based on the history of those countries of origin. But we do have it. Yeah. And I think it's worth, in our follow-on conversations with the federal government to say, please keep this in mind as you're tracking and reporting, because as Juanita made very clear, this is a part of erasure, right? When we don't identify people as they would wish to be identified. And we need to make sure that our school system is doing the same thing. Are we, you can check a lot of boxes about whether you're Hispanic or Latino or non-Hispanic or Latino, but what are we asking our Guatemalan families to do?
Are we asking that now, MCPS? What are we doing?
So I wanted to respond to that as well, because I think for quite some time now, we've had this discussion about how we can drill down. I think any advocacy that we can do also at that federal level, because it goes from the census on, it permeates every aspect of data collection that we engage in. And I think that concept about erasure and what it means, that distinct invisibility is something that we should tackle so that doesn't occur on a regular basis.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I know this, I often get frustrated in other immigrant communities that we can't get down in the Asian immigrant community and the African immigrant, that we can't get down to the level of detail. Obviously, when you have a continent that like Africa, for example, you could fit 3 United States in, the idea that we don't distinguish necessarily is not great. All right, my last question, it just related to the support, or who's already here. You mentioned, Jillian, the charts that this is the season. So what has happened to date? Let's just stick in 2021. What are we getting in? Are we starting to see, as schools are back opening up, enrollment numbers? Can you give us some sense of what we know. You said it could be up to 3,000. Where are we right now, and what's currently happening kind of as of today?
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good question, and it's tricky, right? Because the numbers that we have are from ORR. They're about 2 months late. Okay. Those are the numbers only of kids released to sponsors in our county. We won't see them until they enroll in school. We have no way otherwise to track them at the county level. So a lot of these kids are just landing and getting sorted. Very many of them won't enroll in school,
right?
Because they frankly need to pay back what it costs to get here. And if they don't pay it back, their families are threatened with extortion, etc. at home. So that's a primary responsibility. So we just don't know. I mean,
well, based on the 2 month lag, what do we know? So we're 2 months behind.
Yeah. So we have 100 children who've been released to sponsors since January.
Okay.
But Margarita can speak to the number that have enrolled. It's less than that.
Yeah, Margarita.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. We have only enrolled, and we're tracking the students who are specifically coming through the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and we've enrolled less than 70. But we are starting to see an uptick in the families reaching out, seeking enrollment. And then, as has been mentioned a few times throughout this conversation, we are seeing families and students coming through the border that are not stopping through and we're also enrolling them, but they don't factor into that number. They factor into our total enrollment numbers. But I am tracking all of it.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think it'd just be, I know you will, keep the Joint Committee updated as the numbers come in, all of us, as we're trying to adjust. And it's tricky because not only is it a moving target, but you're trying to track who comes through ORR and then also the other processes, but also knowing that just because they enrolled yesterday, they're probably not captured in the 2 month lag data from ORR. So it's that's a tricky, but I guess we'll have a better sense by the fall. As we move forward. Okay. Well, I'm anything we can do. I think you hear from all of us that this is super important. We're already off to a great start with the model. We can't boast that we have 4 of the top 10 most diverse cities in the country and not be a model for this stuff. And I'm really proud that we're off to a good start and want to do all we can to make sure it continues and we give these students and young people and families the warmest handoff to all of our county services as we can in the most humane and in line with human rights as we should be doing. So really appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I just have a couple closing thoughts. Chairman Rice, did you have a closing thought? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, so I actually had a couple comments. So, one of the things that I hope for, and Councilmember Zawando always says this about the millions that are watching at home, but I think that we need to educate our community about what is happening. Because the travesty and injustice is truly genocide. That's what's happening. And when you see the government that's killing their own and cartels that are specifically targeting many of the indigenous people there, that is genocide. And so, my hope is that that by people seeing this and understanding what's going on, they'll continue to put pressure on our federal government to intervene. Because it was just this January that you had, 19 people killed at the border, 13 of which were children that were shot and then burned beyond recognition. I mean, this is what's happening. You had folks who were here in this country who got, under the Trump administration, shipped back to Guatemala and then were killed. And were killed as they tried to escape the persecution that they were here working legitimately in factories, earning a living, trying to take care of their families, minding their own business, not doing anything to anyone. And we ship them back to the country so that they can be executed and murdered. That's a problem. And we need to highlight that because that's the start of this, right? So while we want to be reactive to what is happening and certainly care for those who are fleeing, we cannot forget about what is happening in this country. We cannot forget about that. One of my best friends is from Belize, neighboring country. And so I know all too well about the Mayan history that's there. He's educated me and his family's educated me. But I will tell you, it's very similar to the Taino in Puerto Rico. because that's what happened to the Taino in Puerto Rico, and the government just basically wiped them out and isolated them to one small part of the island. And I worked for Puerto Rico for 2 years, and so I got educated and learned about this. If people knew the stories about what was happening, I think that people would be outraged and step up more. And so I want to ask that because it ties into what it is that I'm seeing in terms of Prince George's, and it may just be that that's where people ended up locating. But I know with sponsor families, how do we encourage more folks who may be and want to be involved in being sponsor families and grow that sponsor base to have them here in Montgomery County? What are some of the things that we can do to help encourage that? And that's for anybody.
So it's a really important question. It takes about 6 to 9 months to get certified to be a sponsor for these kids. So, and currently ORR is not, I mean, they say they're looking for foster families and wish to expand those landing spots for kids. But in the meantime, when they come to us, they say, we'd like to open a facility of 500 beds. So which one is it? Do you want to keep opening massive facilities, or do you want to put kids in families? So if Montgomery County doesn't want to open a 200 plus bed facility, and I don't think we do because we're committed to child welfare principles in this county, and we say we do want to open up smaller group homes and other landing spots for kids, but if it takes 6 to 9 months to get there, that's a slow process. So we're trying to put some pressure on the federal government too and say, listen, we want to partner with you. We want to be a safe, welcoming, receptive, but you've got to give us some capacity to do that in a way that matches also our values, right? So that's sort of where we're stuck right now. But we're continuing. Like tomorrow, I'm meeting with some of the Bethany Christian Services, which operates some of the foster programs for kids. The difficulty is if we get kids in those programs, we are then obligated to ship them to Crofton, Maryland for education, because they can't be enrolled in the school system until they're released to sponsors. It's complicated.
No, but
this is
incredibly. Yeah, no, but this is incredibly important because that's a key part of this. Where again, I think that we need to do so. Mr. Chair, I pledge that as a member of the National Association of Counties who serves on our Human Services and Education Committee, this is something that I think all of us need to start addressing and putting pressure on our federal government to really recognize and understand what's happening and the things that we can do to help the system as a whole, because we all know that having a mass site where folks are basically housed is not what's what we want. I mean, it's the same as our homeless population. We don't want to have shelters. We want to have homes. And that's our ultimate goal, is to get people housed in stable and supportive housing. And so from that same respect, we want these children to be in stable and supportive homes, not in a stable and supportive, combined unit with hundreds of other children, right? That's not conducive, and we know that. And so whatever we can do to help push that, and I agree with everything that my colleagues have said, from Councilmember Duando to Chair Albornoz, in terms of the other things, but I do think that we need to start now. Because if the current process is 6 to 9 months, we can have people starting to go through that process now as we look to fix the process to help us for the fall, right? To start getting engaged so that we can get folks prepared. So I think it's multifaceted in terms of doing an awareness campaign around what's happening. So with Senora Cabrera, I agree with you wholeheartedly that we've got to do more when it comes to educating folks and telling people the story of understanding that we're running the risk of allowing the same things to happen that we've seen happen country after country around us when it comes to the native indigenous people that are there. And at the same time, what we need to do to make sure that in the meantime, as we're trying to fix that we're helping to allow for folks to be able to reach asylum and get to a place where they can be safe and carry out the ability for them to have bright futures. So, again, I just want to close by saying I'm incredibly appreciative of everybody and all of the work that everyone is doing around this. And I think that we need to just engage and educate our community as a whole about what's happening, what we need to do, and what they can do to help us on this journey. So thank you.
Okay, so thank you all again. That was well said, Chairman Rice, and thank you very much for your comments and questions, Councilmember Jawando. So Ms. McMillan, I think there's a few follow-ups. One, clearly continuing to get updated from this remarkable team on progress, where we are, and if there are policy barriers or fiscal barriers or help and leverage reaching out to our federal partners, we're here to help in any way that we can. And I think that we will help in any way we can. The second is I really want to connect Juanita to this team as a follow-up. And so if we can ensure that contact information is shared between folks, because there's a lot to follow up on there with HHS and with an MCPS within the context of this discussion, but frankly broader too, because I'm also interested in the third component, which is, and to Councilmember Jawando's point, what can we do to further support organizations that are in a unique position to provide support to communities that are not currently being supported in the way that they need to be. And we're discussing it within the context of indigenous populations in Central America, but there are other communities in our Asian and our African communities and Caribbean as well and I think this is an opportunity before us because we do have some resources uniquely in this year that we don't normally with some support from the federal government. And then the final follow-up, as I noted in my notes, is I know that the executive team and this team has been meeting with our federal partners. We have one of the best federal delegations in the country right here in our region with Senators Cardin, and Senator Van Hollen and Congressman Raskin, Congressman Trone, and others really interested in providing support and have been national leaders on these issues. And we often have the opportunity to meet with them on a biannual basis, and I want to make sure this is included in our discussion because I think there's some crossover in ensuring follow-up. And I said final thing, but this was truly the last one. The manner in which we collect data, as we've heard here, is so important on so many different levels. And so I do think this is an opportunity for us at a local level to be leaders in this space as well. And I have a high degree of confidence in this team, and in particular MCPS, who literally has written the book in many ways on multicultural outreach over generations. And I can speak about that in the first person as a graduate of MCPS many years ago. So there's a history there that we can build off of and that I think is really important. So with that, thank you all so much. This has been really enlightening and heartening in many ways. And I feel confident based on this presentation that we've got a pretty good team and plan in place with some follow-up obviously necessary. So thank you all so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you all. Please stay safe, everybody.